I have ever met in my life. He could not talk. If you said, how you doing? He would go through his whole medical history and tell you every ache, pain, mosquito bite that he has ever had. He had recently retired from the Air Force, and he was in the process of looking for another job, so we were just a way station for him. And he would come back and talk about the resumes he put out, the interviews he had for other jobs, and to hear him tell it, he was getting letters of rejection from companies that he didn't even apply to. It got to the point where no one wanted to work with this guy, so I would try to speak life into him, encourage him. I saw him smile once and it looked like he was in pain. So as much as I talked to him and tried to speak life and encourage him, he just would not receive it. So I just shifted gears and said, I just better pray for him that this man get this job. Thank God for answered prayers. See, we find it easier to speak and believe in the negative than that God is able to bless us. See, we see that because we see broke people all the time, broke, busted, and disgusted. We see it all the time. We hear about utility getting cut off, and heat getting cut off, and cars being repossessed. And because of the way the world works, and we think carnally, we find it easy to believe that can happen to us also. Now, if God was to bless somebody, we just as easily find excuses of why it can't happen to us. God says, I'm going to bless Elder Holloman. Elder Holloman's debt-free, house paid off, another house. We'll sit there and go, well, I could see him doing that for Elder Holloman because that's Elder Holloman. I'm just somebody sitting in the back row. I'm not bishop, I'm not pastor, I'm not deacon, I'm not head of the hat-tipping committee. When we see, hold on. When we start to think and speak kingdom-minded, we can have what God says we can have. It doesn't matter who you think you are. Because God is not a respecter of persons. You either believe him or you don't. We need to start believing that anything is possible for God. We say it, but do we really believe it? After Jesus was resurrected, he showed himself to Thomas, doubting Thomas, and I think that was unfair for people to call him that because, truth be told, none of them believed it. None of them believed it. But he told Thomas, you believe because you have seen. But he went on to say, blessed are those who believe who have not seen. See, these are the disciples who were with Jesus. They saw the miracles firsthand. They saw him healing people. They saw him raising the dead. Yet there was still some unbelief in them. Do you think Peter would have walked on the water if he hadn't seen Jesus do it himself and know that it was possible to do? Yet Peter, who walked on the water, who made the impossible possible, while he was doing the possible, began to think it was impossible and began to sink. When we could get past that unbelief and just believe God, we will start to see the miraculous happening again. You'll see the blind see. See the blind see. That just doesn't sound right. Well, we will hear of the deaf hearing. And the sick will be healed. What will it finally take for us to believe God? God is still doing the miraculous, you know. See, we need to learn to put believing God into practice. When God tells you about to do something, we need to put aside those thoughts that limit him. If God said he's going to pay off your house, what thoughts would come to your mind? Sometimes we limit God because we're trying to figure him out. And we figure we're going to give him a little help. God said he was going to bless me financially. That's for him telling me I need to play the lottery. You know, they're up to $1 gazillion. I got to play that. Remember, Abraham and Sarah tried to help God. Abraham sowed that seed and produced a harvest called Ishmael. And you can trace Ishmael's lineage up to the people we see now, rock throwing, plane crashing, suicide vest wearing people who to this day are thorn in Israel's side. God don't need our help. Now, that was for me. That was definitely for me. I don't want to help. But even if we did hit the jackpot, we probably wouldn't give God the credit, because if we did that, we got a tithe off of it then. We also need to be careful about who we tell. People, including your family, are some of the biggest blessing blockers and distractions. They'll sit there until you're speaking life and encouraging somebody. They'll tell you, man, that just sounds crazy. You don't believe all that mess, do you? If God tells you he's going to bless you, you need to just simply believe him. And when he does, give him the glory. See, if God was to tell me he was going to pay my house off, it would not surprise me, and I would not be shocked when I get a call from the mortgage company. And they said, since you are the first left-handed African-American male who was born in Southeast Washington, D.C., who joined the Air Force in 1983, moved to Valdosta, joined New Life, worked in the audio video ministry. If you can count the 10 by 2s, we're going to pay your house off. My response would be 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Thank you, God. I might even throw a couple of backflips in. See, we need to believe God and not set limits on him. We need to speak life over ourselves and our situation. As I close, I'm about to say something will be joyous news to some, and to others it will be a warning, because the Bible does say whoever sows sparingly will also reap sparingly. Whoever sows generously will also reap generously. Because of the seeds you have sown, your harvest is coming. God bless you. Stand on your feet.